In a small, dimly lit hospital room, 2 babies were born in the early hours of the morning, their cries breaking the silence of the night. The sterile scent of the room mixed with the soft whirring sound of medical machines as the nurses worked quickly to ensure the babies were cared for. However, the moment the twins were placed in their parents' arms, their smiles faded. The twins, Clara and Lily, were unlike any babies the parents had expected. Their faces were misshapen, their skin covered in blotches that resembled burn marks, and their eyes were smaller than typical infants, giving them a strange, unsettling appearance. The nurses, trying to hide their surprise, exchanged uncomfortable glances, but there was no mistaking it. These babies were far from the picture-perfect image most parents had when they imagined their newborns. Lena and Mark, the twins' parents, had long dreamed of having a family, but now with their newborn daughters, the dream felt like a nightmare. They had both expected to hold their perfect little girl and boy, but instead they were left holding 2 babies who seemed more like creatures from another world. Lena's hands shook as she held one of the babies, trying to force a smile, but she couldn't look at her without feeling a deep, gnawing sense of disappointment. Mark, his face pale, stood by her side, his eyes shifting from one twin to the other, unsure of how to react. He hadn't known how to prepare himself for this. Neither of them had. How do we? Lena's voice trailed off, barely able to ask the question that had been plaguing her since she saw them. I don't know, Mark whispered. I don't think we can. A deep silence hung in the room. The hospital staff noticed the tension. One nurse, trying to ease the mood, smiled warmly at the parents. They're healthy, though, right? She asked. Lena's face twisted, and she nodded, but her heart wasn't in the motion. The twins were healthy, yes, but the reality of their appearance was too much for her to handle. The next few days in the hospital were a blur. The twins cried for attention, needing their mother's love and care. But Lena found it difficult to connect with them. How could she love something so far removed from the ideal she had imagined? How could she bond with children whose faces filled her with dread? Mark, too, found it hard to look at them. He would leave for hours, hiding his discomfort. The guilt ate at him, but the feeling was overpowering. They didn't look like babies. They didn't look like anything he had ever seen before. Eventually, the couple made the hardest decision of their lives. They couldn't raise these children, not like this. In their hearts, they knew they were failing them, but they couldn't see a way forward. Their dream of parenthood, of a perfect family, was shattered, replaced by the ugly reality of the twins' appearance. They were already trying to convince themselves that it wasn't their fault, that they couldn't have known this would happen, and so, a few days after birth, Clara and Lily were abandoned at the hospital, left in a cold, lonely nursery with no one to care for them. The babies' cries echoed off the walls. The nurses, though saddened by the situation, couldn't stop it. Their birth certificates were filled out with only the barest of information, names, dates, but nothing more. The hospital tried to find the girls a home. The records were passed along to adoption agencies, but no one seemed willing to take them. How could anyone love them? Their physical appearance made them undesirable. And no one wanted to risk the burden of raising children who might face ridicule and rejection for their entire lives. Time went by slowly for the twins in the orphanage. They were cared for, fed, and clothed, but love was something that eluded them. They never felt the warmth of a mother's embrace or the comforting presence of a father. Instead, they learned quickly how to fend for themselves in an indifferent world, one that turned its back on them at every turn. The days blurred together. The twins, now growing, were treated as outcasts, their peers mocking them at every chance. Clara, always the quieter one, tried to hide behind her sister. Lily, however, was feistier, defiant against the harshness of the world. But as the years wore on, even Lily's spirit began to break. By the time they reached adolescence, the twins had been rejected by more families than they could count. They had faced years of neglect, ridicule, and isolation. No one wanted them. They were cursed with an appearance that no one could look past, and it seemed the world only saw their ugliness. But deep down, Clara and Lily still had dreams, however faint they were. Clara dreamed of a world where people saw beyond their faces, beyond their physical flaws. Lily dreamed of escape, of finding a place where they could belong. As Clara and Lily grew older, their childhood was marked by invisible bruises, wounds of rejection, harsh whispers, and the cold glares of strangers. By the time they were 12, they had learned to read people's reactions before a single word was spoken. Their presence caused children to recoil, adults to look away. Wherever they went, they were reminders of something wrong, something unnatural. At the orphanage, other kids whispered nicknames behind their backs, the troll twins, monster sisters, witch faces. The staff did what they could, but compassion often fell short of action. Most caregivers didn't mean harm, but they were too busy, too underfunded, too emotionally removed to truly intervene when the bullying got bad. Lily fought back, physically if she had to. She got in trouble often, not because she was cruel, but because she refused to stay silent when someone insulted her or Clara. Clara, on the other hand, kept her pain tucked deep inside. She was a quiet observer, the more introspective of the two. While Lily's fists flew, Clara's mind wandered through pages of old donated books where characters rose from obscurity, where outcasts became heroes. They were different, yes, but not in the way the world believed. Beneath their unconventional appearance, they were smart, intuitive, and fiercely loyal to each other. By the time they were 15, they had grown into young women with sharp minds and deeper emotional strength than most people twice their age. Their features, though still unusual, had softened. What once looked grotesque now carried a mysterious, haunting beauty that some began to notice. But first impressions were hard to change. Still, life didn't offer many opportunities. Schools refused to enroll them, citing limited space. Interviews for part-time jobs ended abruptly once they walked through the door. The world kept rejecting them before even learning who they were. It was during this time that Clara started experimenting with makeup, not to hide, but to understand. She spent hours at night practicing shading, contouring, learning how color and light could shift perception. She didn't want to erase their features, she wanted to enhance what others refused to see. Lily, on the other hand, found comfort in fitness. She began running, lifting weights using makeshift equipment, channeling her rage into discipline. Over time, her body grew leaner, stronger, and she began to gain confidence in how she moved, how she carried herself. Together, they began to rebuild themselves not into people the world wanted, but into women they could be proud of. They worked tirelessly, studying online using donated laptops, learning from YouTube tutorials and free courses. Clara pursued digital art and design. Lily gravitated toward personal training and psychology. Their pain gave them purpose, but change didn't come without setbacks. At 17, they were invited to a group home dinner event meant to socialize the teens with potential sponsors or mentors. The moment Clara and Lily walked into the room, all conversation stopped. A woman dropped her wine glass. A man chuckled uncomfortably and muttered, "What kind of horror show is this?" They left before dessert was served. That night, Lily punched a wall until her knuckles bled. Clara wept silently, her tears falling onto the sketches she had drawn of a dream life, a small house, a dog, a cozy studio, but even in the darkest hour, they didn't give up. They refused to believe that life had nothing better to offer. They would not let the world define them. By the time they turned 18, they aged out of the orphanage system. With barely any money and no family to lean on, they packed their few belongings into 2 old duffel bags and walked out into the world, alone but unbroken. They found shelter in a rundown part of town, in a building where the rent was cheap and the neighbors minded their own business. Lily got a job cleaning at a local gym. Clara picked up freelance gigs designing posters for small businesses. It wasn't glamorous, but it was theirs, and slowly something miraculous began to happen. One morning, a fitness influencer at Lily's gym noticed her lifting twice as much weight as most men her size. Impressed, she recorded a clip of Lily training. "This girl is a beast," the caption read. "Don't judge a book by its cover." The video went viral overnight. People were captivated, not just by Lily's strength, but by her story, her scars, and her resilience. And she didn't hide anything. In an impromptu video she posted later that day, she said, "Yeah, I'm not what most people call beautiful. I've heard every name in the book. But none of that matters anymore. I'm not here to please anyone. I'm here to show people what real strength looks like. Me and my sister, we survived the worst. And now we're coming for the best." The internet listened. Lily's video didn't just rack up views, it sparked a movement. People flooded the comments with messages of support. Some admitted they'd initially watched out of curiosity, even mockery, but were now deeply moved. Others, especially teens who felt different, broken, or unwanted, called Lily a hero. The video reached 2 million views in 3 days, and while Lily's fierce honesty earned her admiration, it was Clara's turn to shine next. Inspired by the wave of attention, Clara decided to post her art anonymously on Instagram. She shared a digital portrait she had sketched of herself and Lily, drawn not as they were, but as they saw each other. In the image, they stood tall and radiant, scars transformed into symbols of survival, eyes fierce and full of life. The caption read, "This is how I see my sister. And maybe, just maybe, this is how I'll learn to see myself too." The account started with 0 followers. Within a week, she had 50,000. Her inbox overflowed with commissions, portraits, storyboards, even book illustrations. People were moved by the emotion in her lines, the vulnerability in her compositions. She had captured something deeper than skin-deep beauty. She had drawn truth. Suddenly, the girls who were once rejected by everyone found themselves being celebrated by thousands, but not everyone was cheering. The newfound fame drew the attention of someone they thought was long gone, Lena. Their birth mother.it began with a direct message. Simple. Cold, is this you? Clara. Clara froze when she saw it. She didn't respond immediately. She showed Lily the message, her hands trembling. A lifetime of abandonment flashed behind her eyes. Questions she'd buried suddenly clawed their way back to the surface. Why now? Lily was furious. She left us to rot, she growled. And now she wants a reunion because we're famous? But Clara, ever the empath, wasn't so sure. People change, she said. What if she regrets it? She doesn't deserve to. The twins spent the next few days in a fog. The internet adored them. News outlets started to request interviews. Clara's artwork was being licensed for merchandise. Lily got invited to speak at a youth empowerment event. Everything they dreamed of was finally within reach, yet this message, this ghost from the past, lingered like smoke in a room. Clara felt torn, and after a week of silence, she finally responded, Yes. This is Clara. And this is Lily. Why are you reaching out now? The reply came almost instantly. I made a mistake. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed to see you. Just once. Please. Clara didn't tell Lily about the reply. Not yet. She needed time to understand what she wanted. Her heart was conflicted. There was no denying the pain their parents had caused them. But what if Lena truly wanted to make amends? What if healing was possible? But when Lily found out Clara had replied, she exploded. You went behind my back. After everything she did. Her voice cracked with fury and betrayal. She didn't just walk away from you, Clara, she left us. I know, Clara whispered. I need to hear her say it. That night, they didn't speak. They slept in the same apartment, but in separate rooms, an unfamiliar silence that hurt more than the cruelest words ever had. Meanwhile, the world kept watching. The twins were invited to a popular daytime talk show to share their story, an offer that would put them in front of millions. It was a dream, but it would also bring every skeleton in their closet into the public eye. Clara knew it. Lily knew it. The night before the show, they sat on the couch, side by side again, quiet for a long while before Lily spoke. If she shows up at that studio, Lily said, I walk. Clara nodded. She won't. I promise. But promises are sometimes made too soon, because while they were preparing for the spotlight, someone else was preparing to step back into it too. The studio lights were hot. The cameras, massive and intimidating. Clara and Lily sat nervously on the plush, cream-colored sofa of the Morning Moments with Dana Keene set, wearing outfits lent to them by the production team, simple but flattering. Clara had styled Lily's hair herself, and Lily had helped Clara with her eyeliner. Their bond was unspoken but solid again. They had weathered another emotional storm and emerged, not untouched, but still together. Dana Keene, a polished host with a warm demeanor and years of experience, sat across from them, cue cards in hand. The show was broadcast live to millions of households across America. After a brief introduction, Dana leaned forward. So, Clara, Lily, your story has touched so many hearts. Abandoned at birth, ridiculed for your appearance, and now icons of strength and hope. What do you say to those who called you ugly back then? Lily's jaw tightened for a moment, but she spoke clearly. I say thank you. Because you gave us something to prove. And now we're proof that no one's worth is defined by what they look like. Applause erupted. Dana turned to Clara. Clara, your artwork has been called emotionally transformative. You said in a post once that you draw people the way they should see themselves. What did you mean by that? Clara's voice was soft but sure. Everyone's so focused on surface flaws. But beauty, it's what someone survives. What they overcome. That's what I try to capture. Not what the world sees, but what the soul survives. More applause. Even the crew behind the scenes was moved. Then, the moment no one expected, Dana hesitated, glancing at her producer off stage, then leaned forward. I need to ask you something, she said. We've been contacted by someone who claims to be your biological mother. She says she's been watching and wishes to speak with you on air. She's here, right now backstage. Time froze. Lily's entire body tensed. What? Clara's breath caught in her throat. Her hands gripped her knees. She hadn't expected this. Not like this. The message. The reply. But this was ambush. I'm sorry, Dana added quickly. We understand if this is something you're not ready for. The decision is entirely yours. The audience was completely silent. Lily stood up. No. This wasn't agreed on. You ambushed us. Clara's eyes darted between the host, the cameras, and her sister. She felt a war within herself. Her whole life, she dreamed of hearing why. Of understanding. Of something, she left us in a box, Lily said sharply. She made a choice. And now we get to choose. Dana looked apologetic. Of course. We'll respect your decision. But before the producers could cue a break, a voice echoed from behind the stage. I'm sorry. I know I have no right. But please, let me just say one thing. Everyone turned. From the side curtain, a woman stepped out, mid-40s, worn eyes, trembling hands. It was Lena. Their birth mother. Security didn't stop her. The producers didn't move. It was clear this had been orchestrated, but now it was live and no one wanted to be the villain. Clara rose, heart pounding. Her hands trembled. Lily turned her head away. Lena looked directly at them. I was a coward. 20 years ago, I had twin babies and I was told they would never be normal. That people would mock them, hurt them, abandon them. And instead of protecting you, I did the abandoning first. Her voice cracked. I have hated myself every day since. Tears welled in Clara's eyes. Lily stayed still. I saw your videos, Lena continued. You're strong. You're brilliant. You're everything I wasn't. And I know saying sorry doesn't fix it. But if there's anything I can do now, I will. Clara took a single step forward. Why now? She asked, her voice breaking. Because we're famous? Because we're finally worth seeing? No, Lena said softly. Because I saw who you became without me. And I realized I never deserved you. But I had to try. Silence. Then Clara whispered, we didn't need you to come fix us. We fixed ourselves. Lily finally turned, eyes burning. You want forgiveness? She said. Start by not making this about you. Lena nodded, a tear falling down her cheek. I understand. And then she left. Quietly. No applause. No grand moment of redemption. Dana called for a break and the cameras cut. Backstage, the producers apologized profusely. Dana herself came to both girls and asked if they were okay. Clara was shaken but not broken. Lily was furious but composed, and once the taping ended, the twins sat alone in their dressing room. Are you mad at me? Clara asked quietly. No, Lily sighed. I can't believe she thought she could undo 20 years in 2 minutes. She didn't. But maybe she needed to hear us say it. Out loud. That we made it without her. Lily nodded. Damn right we did. That night, the episode aired. And America exploded with emotion. Not because of Lena, but because of Clara and Lily, their dignity, their strength, their honesty. They weren't just viral anymore. They were icons. The morning after the talk show aired, Clara and Lily's inboxes blew up. The clip of their confrontation with Lena was everywhere: Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, even morning news panels. Pundits debated their choice to speak so honestly. Others speculated on Lena's motives. But the overwhelming reaction from the public was one of awe. #RealBeauty and #TwinPower trended for 2 straight days. I feel like we've been turned into symbols, Clara said as she scrolled through her phone, sipping coffee in their tiny kitchen. Lily nodded, her phone pinging nonstop. Yeah. But symbols don't have to be perfect. Just real. Clara smiled faintly. You're wiser than you look. Hey, Lily shot back, grinning, don't make me go viral for dropkicking my own twin. But the joking didn't erase the weight in their hearts. The encounter with Lena had stirred things they weren't prepared for. All the therapy, journaling, and quiet healing, they thought they were past it. But facing her had reopened wounds like freshly torn stitches. Later that week, they received another letter. This time, not from Lena.it, was from their biological father. A short, typewritten note slid into their mailbox with no return address. I saw you on TV. You look strong. I'm sorry for what we did. I won't intrude. But I wanted you to know. I think about you every day. Lily shredded the letter on sight. Nope. He doesn't get to lurk. He had 20 years. Clara, quieter this time, didn't argue. It wasn't long before the twins were offered book deals, documentary projects, even brand partnerships. Everyone wanted to tell their story. But every time a flashy producer came calling, Clara would ask the same thing: do you want our story or do you want our trauma? And most couldn't answer honestly. Then came a call from a small nonprofit organization, Reflections Reborn, focused on empowering children with facial deformities and birth anomalies. They asked if Clara and Lily would consider being keynote speakers at an upcoming summit in Chicago. There was no hesitation. Yes, Lily said. 1,000 times yes. They flew out a month later, their first time on a plane. The summit was held in a modest convention center, but the energy was electric. Hundreds of young people gathered, some with scars, others with burns, cleft palates, or rare skin conditions. But all of them had the same look in their eyes, the craving for someone to understand, and when Clara and Lily stepped on stage, the room fell into a hush. They didn't read from a script. They didn't deliver some polished speech, they told the truth. Lily spoke about what it meant to grow up hated by strangers. About using sarcasm as armor. About the moment she realized her worth didn't depend on anyone's approval. Clara spoke about drawing beauty from pain. About choosing compassion over resentment. About learning that the mirror lies and the soul doesn't. By the end, the crowd rose to its feet. Not with thunderous applause, but with tears in their eyes and arms in the air, reaching not just for the twins, but for hope. Later, backstage, a young girl with a deep scar across her jaw walked up to them with her mom. She looked up, shy and trembling. "Do you think I could look like you too when I grow up?" Clara knelt down, tears already brimming. "I hope you look exactly like you," she said gently. "Because the world needs more of that." The girl beamed, and for the first time in a long, long while. Lily cried, not from anger. Not from shame, but from joy. After the summit, something shifted in Clara and Lily. They returned to New York with more than praise and press, they returned with purpose. Lily started mentoring a small group of high school girls through Zoom, helping them navigate bullying, body image, and self-worth. She wasn't polished or careful with her words, she was raw, real, sometimes even hilarious, and the girls loved her for it. Clara, on the other hand, launched a digital art series called Reflections. It featured portraits of people from all walks of life, each accompanied by a caption about their greatest pain and how they overcame it. The project went viral almost immediately. Their apartment, once a quiet cocoon of healing, now buzzed with energy, interviews, and opportunities, but with new beginnings, old ghosts often follow. One rainy evening, Clara returned home to find Lily standing in the kitchen, white envelope in hand, unread. "It's from Lena," Lily muttered. Again. Clara took it gently. The letter was handwritten. "Dear Clara and Lily, I've watched every interview, every speech, every post. You two are changing lives and I couldn't be prouder. Even if I have no right to be. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. Just to thank you for showing me the kind of women you became. If you ever want to ask me questions, no cameras, no drama, just a quiet table and the truth, I'll be here. Always." There was an address at the bottom. A diner in Pennsylvania. Clara sat down slowly, letter still in hand. "She's not begging," she said quietly. "She's just there." "I don't want to go," Lily said. "Not yet." Clara nodded. "Then we won't." But weeks passed. Clara couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because she needed some grand reunion, but because the space left behind by Lena wasn't just about pain anymore. It was about understanding. One morning, she quietly booked a bus to Pennsylvania. Alone, she didn't tell Lily. Not because she wanted to lie, but because she didn't want to sway her. The diner was small. Faded booths. A single waitress wiping down a counter. Lena sat in the corner, hands wrapped around a coffee mug she hadn't sipped. Clara walked in slowly, hood pulled over her head. She sat across from her birth mother without a word. Lena looked up. And for the first time, she smiled. It wasn't relief. Or joy. It was sorrow, softened by gratitude. "Thank you for coming," Lena whispered. Clara didn't speak at first. She studied the woman who had given her life and taken so much of it away. "You were scared," Clara finally said. "And you ran." Lena nodded. "Yes. I hated you for a long time. I hated myself more." Silence stretched. Then Clara reached into her bag and placed a single printout on the table, one of her drawings. A portrait of herself and Lily standing in the rain, heads tilted toward the sun. "I used to think if you saw who we became, you'd regret leaving." Tears slid down Lena's cheeks, "But now I realize we became who we are because you left." Lena nodded, voice barely a whisper. "I know." They didn't hug. They didn't cry together. There was no big healing crescendo, but when Clara left that diner, she didn't feel broken anymore. She felt free. Clara returned to New York that night without saying a word to Lily, not because she wanted to keep it from her, but because she didn't know how to say it. How do you tell someone you forgave the person who left you in a box? But Lily knew something had changed. She noticed the calm in Clara's movements, the quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. "You saw her," Lily said bluntly 3 nights later, catching Clara in the kitchen pouring tea. Clara froze. Lily leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Didn't you?" Clara nodded silently. Lily's face twisted into something unreadable. "Hurt. Anger. Maybe even betrayal." "Why?" "I had to," Clara said softly. "For me. I didn't go to let her off the hook. I went to let myself go." Lily's voice cracked. "You could have told me." "I didn't want to sway you," Clara said. "You deserve to feel however you feel without my decision making you question your own." "I don't want to forgive her," Lily said. "And I don't think I ever will." "You don't have to." The silence between them sat heavy like storm clouds before a downpour. Then, suddenly, Lily laughed bitterly. Of course you forgave her. You were always the hopeful one. Always looking for some deeper meaning. I'm just the angry one who fought everything and burned bridges. Clara stepped forward. Don't do that. Don't shrink everything down to a stereotype. You fought because you had to. You protected us both when I couldn't. Lily's eyes filled. So why do I still feel like the villain? You're not, Clara said, voice firm. You're my sister. You're my heart. That night, they stayed up talking like they hadn't in months. They didn't agree on everything, but they understood each other again. And that was enough. 2 weeks later, they were invited to attend an awards ceremony in Los Angeles. The Phoenix Honors, a prestigious gala recognizing people who rose from adversity and used their stories to uplift others. When the presenter called their names, the crowd rose. Clara and Lily stepped onto the stage, holding hands. Clara spoke first. There are millions of people who feel invisible, unwanted, unlovable. We know that feeling. We were those people. Lily took the mic next, but we want you to know your story isn't over. And how you start does not decide where you'll finish. Just look at us. Applause thundered. Flashbulbs lit up the stage, but later that night, alone in their hotel room, the sisters curled up under a blanket like they did when they were kids. Can you believe we used to eat crackers in a group home closet? Lily whispered, chuckling. Clara smiled. And now we're eating room service with truffle fries. I still don't trust truffle fries. They burst into laughter. They weren't just healing anymore. They were living, and the world was watching. But more importantly, they were watching each other. After the Phoenix Honors, life began to speed up for Clara and Lily. Publishers fast-tracked their memoir. Schools across the country invited them to speak. Netflix sent an inquiry for a docuseries, but amidst all the buzz, Clara made one quiet decision. She wanted to go back, not to the diner.to, the group home, the place where they'd spent most of their early years, huddled in bunk beds, ignored, mocked, barely noticed. She told Lily the plan over breakfast. Lily put down her fork. You're serious? Clara nodded. I want to see it. I want to thank the good people. And I want to look those walls in the eye and say, you didn't break us. For once, Lily didn't argue. They booked a rental car and drove out to the rust-colored building tucked between decaying neighborhoods and overgrown lots. The sign was still there, faded and cracked. Hopewell Children's Center. They walked through the gates and rang the bell. An older woman answered, Ms. Ellen, one of the few kind souls who had once sneaked them extra milk cartons and hugged them when they cried. She gasped when she saw them. My lord, she whispered, tears forming instantly. Is it really you girls? Clara and Lily hugged her tight. I prayed for you two every single year, she said, guiding them inside. I never stopped. The inside looked the same chipped paint, same dim lighting. But the twins didn't feel fear anymore. They felt strength. Do the kids here still get that closet? Lily asked, gesturing toward the back hallway. Ms. Ellen nodded, confused. Why? The twins walked down the hallway slowly and opened the door to the same storage closet where they used to hide. It was still dusty, still cramped, still dark. Clara snapped a photo of it. I want people to see this, she said, so they understand what it means to come from nothing. Then, Clara turned to Ms. Ellen. We'd like to donate, she said softly. Not just money. We want to renovate this place. New beds, books, lights. We want these kids to feel seen. Ms. Ellen broke down crying. By the end of the month, Clara and Lily had partnered with local volunteers and national sponsors. Contractors moved in. Artists painted murals. Shelves filled with books and toys. That dusty old closet? They turned it into a reading nook. Soft pillows, fairy lights, and a sign on the door that read, This is where strength begins. The grand reopening made local news. And for once, the faces of Clara and Lily weren't tragic headlines. They were hometown heroes. Kids at the center ran up to them during the event, hugging their legs, asking for selfies. One girl whispered, You're the prettiest people I've ever seen. Lily crouched and looked the child in the eyes. So are you. Clara snapped a photo of that moment. Later that night, she posted it online with the caption, Beauty isn't what you're born with, it's what you build. The post exploded. Celebrities reposted it. Donations flooded in. But more importantly, kids from all over the country started sending messages like, I used to be ashamed of my face. Now I see it like a badge. Thank you for making me feel visible. I'm not hiding anymore. The ripple effect was real. Clara and Lily had rewritten the story they were once given. And the world was listening. It was a quiet morning in Brooklyn. The kind where the city felt slow, like it, too, needed to pause and breathe. Clara sat on the rooftop of their brownstone apartment, sketchpad in hand. Lily joined her with 2 mugs of coffee, still in pajamas. No makeup, no cameras, just them. They looked out over the skyline that once seemed impossible to reach. 20 years, Lily said softly. Since that box. Clara nodded. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if someone else found us? Sometimes, Clara admitted. But then I remember we were meant to be together. That part was never random. They sat in silence for a while. The kind of silence only shared by people who've seen every part of each other. The good, the broken, the healing. Then Lily smiled. Remember when we said we'd write our own ending? Clara laughed. Looks like we did. Their memoir, Born to Rise, was a bestseller. The Netflix docuseries? Greenlit. But none of it compared to the messages they kept receiving from foster kids, adoptees, burn survivors, bullied teens, people who saw themselves in the twins' story. And Lena, she didn't push. She never showed up uninvited. But she and Clara emailed sometimes. Short, quiet messages. There was no mom or daughter title used. Just 2 humans, learning how to exist in the same world again. Lily never replied, but she no longer flinched when her name came up. Progress came in different shapes. That summer, the twins launched their biggest initiative yet, the Box Project. Named after the box they were abandoned in, it became a nonprofit dedicated to helping neglected children in group homes across the country. They created safe spaces, artistic expression centers, and most importantly, community. The launch event was held at Lincoln Center. Hundreds attended. As Clara stood at the podium, she looked out into the crowd. There were kids with birthmarks, teens in wheelchairs, women with facial scars, men who had grown up in silence. All of them, watching her. She cleared her throat, voice calm but full. 20 years ago, my sister and I were left behind because we weren't what the world called beautiful. We weren't wanted. But we survived, and we thrived, because beauty isn't skin deep, it's soul deep. And every one of you here tonight is proof that we get to define what beauty means. The crowd rose in a standing ovation. Backstage, Lily hugged her tight. Still think truffle fries are weird, she whispered with a smirk. Clara laughed. Good. Keeps you humble. That night, the 2 of them walked home instead of taking a car. Barefoot. High heels in hand. The city buzzed around them, but they didn't need to hear it. They had each other. They always did. 20 years ago, the world gave up on 2 little girls. But those girls, they grew into women who changed it.